Betrayal cuts deeper than any blade. It is a wound that bleeds not from the body, but from the soul. For a man, betrayal by a friend, a brother, a woman he loved, or even family can feel like the ground beneath him has given way. Trust, once sacred and unshakable, shatters into fragments that pierce the heart. The pain is real. The anger, the confusion, the feeling of being made a fool, all of it is real. But here is the truth that the ancient Stoics understood and that every man facing betrayal must learn. Betrayal is not the end of you. It is not a death sentence to your spirit unless you allow it to be. The Stoics, those warriors of the mind, who walked through fire and emerged unbroken, left behind wisdom that can transform your deepest wound into your greatest strength. They taught that while you cannot control the actions of others, you hold absolute dominion over your response. In the face of betrayal, you have a choice. You can let it destroy you, or you can let it forge you into something stronger, something untouchable. This is not about denying the pain. This is about rising through it with dignity, with clarity, and with an inner strength that no betrayal can ever touch. The first principle the Stoics would tell you is this: accept reality as it is, not as you wished it to be. When betrayal strikes, the mind immediately goes to war with itself. You replay every moment, searching for signs you missed, torturing yourself with questions that have no answers. How could they do this? Why didn't I see it? What did I do wrong? But Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor who ruled Rome, yet remained humble in his wisdom, understood that resistance to reality only multiplies suffering. He wrote that we must accept what happens as if we had chosen it ourselves, because fighting against what has already occurred is a battle you can never win. The betrayal happened. The trust was broken. The person you thought you knew revealed themselves to be something different. No amount of wishing, no amount of denial will change this fact. Acceptance is not weakness. It is the foundation of all strength. When you stop fighting reality and instead face it with open eyes, you reclaim the energy you were wasting on denial and redirect it toward your own healing and growth. The man who accepts betrayal without illusion is the man who can begin to move forward, while others remain trapped in the prison of what should have been. From acceptance comes the second lesson: control your response, not the wound itself. Epictetus, who was born a slave and yet became one of the greatest teachers of freedom, taught that there are things within our control and things beyond it. The betrayal itself, the actions of another person, their lies, their deception, their choice to break your trust, all of this is beyond your control. But your response, your emotional reaction, the thoughts you entertain, the actions you take in the aftermath, these belong entirely to you. When a man is betrayed, the immediate instinct is rage. Anger floods the system like a fire demanding to be unleashed. You want to confront, to punish, to make them feel what they made you feel. But the Stoics understood that reactive anger is a form of slavery. It chains you to the person who hurt you. It gives them continued power over your peace. The Stoic does not suppress emotion. He transforms it. He feels the anger, acknowledges it, and then asks himself, what serves my highest self right now? Not revenge, but response. Not reaction, but conscious action. The man who masters his emotional response in the face of betrayal demonstrates a power far greater than any act of retaliation. He proves that his inner world cannot be controlled by the chaos of others. The third wisdom that emerges from Stoic teaching is the understanding of what truly belongs to you and what does not. You do not control whether someone betrays you. You do not control their character, their choices, or their capacity for loyalty. These things were never in your hands to begin with, and believing you could control them was the first illusion. What you do control is your own integrity, your own values, and your own commitment to living according to reason and virtue. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher and advisor to emperors, wrote extensively about the foolishness of placing your happiness in the hands of others. When you invest your peace in another person's loyalty, you make yourself a hostage to their decisions. The betrayed man often feels that his worth has been diminished, that the betrayal reflects something lacking in him. But this is a profound misunderstanding. Their betrayal reflects their character, not yours. Your worth was never theirs to give or take away. It exists independent of their actions. By recognizing the boundary between what is yours and what is theirs, you liberate yourself from the false belief that their betrayal defines you. It does not. What defines you is how you carry yourself in the aftermath. The fourth lesson is perhaps one of the most challenging, yet most liberating. Use betrayal as a mirror for self-examination. The Stoics believed that every difficulty, every hardship, every wound was an opportunity for growth if met with the right mindset. Betrayal forces you to ask hard questions. Did I ignore warning signs because I wanted to believe in something that was not real? Did I compromise my own boundaries to maintain a relationship that was already broken? Did I extend trust without wisdom, or loyalty without reciprocity? This is not about blaming yourself for someone else's choice to betray you. That responsibility is theirs alone. But it is about using the experience to become wiser, more discerning, more aligned with your own values. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to look inward, to examine his own character before judging others. When you turn betrayal into a mirror, you see not just the flaw in the other person, but the lessons you needed to learn about yourself. Perhaps you learn that you must trust actions over words. Perhaps you learn that you must honor your intuition when something feels wrong. Perhaps you learn that your loyalty, while noble, must be reserved for those who prove themselves worthy of it. Betrayal, when examined through the lens of self-reflection, becomes a teacher rather than merely a tormentor. The fifth principle the Stoics practiced with discipline was detachment. From those who no longer serve your highest good, Seneca wrote that we must be selective about who we allow into our inner circle, for the company we keep shapes our character. When someone betrays you, they reveal that they are not aligned with the values you hold sacred. They have shown themselves to be unsafe, unreliable, unworthy of the sacred space they once occupied in your life. The Stoic response is not bitterness, but boundary. You do not need to hate them. You do not need to curse them or wish them harm. But you also do not need to keep them close. Detachment is not cruelty. It is self-preservation. It is the recognition that your energy, your trust, your time, and your emotional investment are precious resources that must be guarded carefully. The betrayed man often struggles with this because he mistakes detachment for hardness or coldness. But there is nothing cold about protecting your peace. There is nothing hard about refusing to allow someone who hurt you to continue having access to hurt you again. The Stoic detaches not out of revenge, but out of wisdom. He releases what no longer serves him and makes space for relationships built on genuine respect, reciprocity, and virtue. The sixth lesson is about maintaining your dignity regardless of how you have been treated. Epictetus taught that no one can humiliate you without your consent. The betrayer may try to paint you as the fool, may spread lies, attempt to justify their actions by tarnishing your reputation. But your dignity is not determined by their narrative. It is determined by your conduct. When you refuse to descend to their level, when you choose not to engage in public battles or petty retaliation, when you carry yourself with quiet strength and composure, you demonstrate a power they cannot comprehend. Dignity in the face of disrespect is one of the highest forms of strength. It is easy to maintain your composure when life is smooth and people are kind. The true test comes when you are provoked, when you are wronged, when you are disrespected. This is when your character is revealed. The Stoic man understands that how others treat him is their karma, but how he responds is his. He does not give away his power by reacting emotionally to every slight or betrayal. He stands firm in his own integrity, knowing that time will reveal truth and that his reputation will be rebuilt not through words, but through consistent, honorable action. The seventh teaching is one that challenges the ego most directly. Refuse the temptation of revenge and choose inner peace instead. When you are betrayed, the desire for the other person to suffer as you have suffered can become consuming. You imagine confrontations? You fantasize about exposing them, about making them pay, about ensuring they face consequences. But Marcus Aurelius warned that the best revenge is to be unlike the one who performed the injury. Revenge is a trap. It keeps you tied to the past, keeps you engaged with the person who hurt you, and prevents you from moving forward. More than that, it poisons you. It turns you into something you are not. The man who seeks revenge becomes obsessed, bitter, small. He sacrifices his own peace for the fleeting satisfaction of another's pain. The Stoic chooses differently. He recognizes that true justice is not his to administer, and that his energy is far better spent building a new chapter than destroying an old one. Letting go of revenge does not mean the betrayer escapes consequences. Life has a way of balancing itself, but those consequences are not your burden to deliver. Your responsibility is to yourself, to your own healing, to your own peace. When you release the need for revenge, you reclaim your freedom. The eighth principle is the Stoic understanding that adversity is training, and betrayal is one of the hardest training grounds you will face. Epictetus often spoke of difficulties as exercises designed to strengthen the soul. He compared challenges to the weights a wrestler lifts to build strength. Betrayal is heavy. It tests everything you thought you knew about trust, loyalty, and human nature. But if you meet it with the right mindset, it builds something within you that nothing else can: resilience. The ability to be hurt and still rise. The capacity to lose faith in one person without losing faith in yourself or in the possibility of good relationships in the future. The Stoic does not shy away from pain. He does not numb it or pretend it does not exist. He walks through it, fully present, fully aware, knowing that on the other side is a version of himself that is stronger, wiser, and more unshakable than before. Betrayal strips away illusions. It forces you to confront reality without the comfort of false narratives. And in that brutal honesty, you find something real. You find yourself. Not the version of yourself that existed in the context of that relationship, but your core, your essence, the part of you that remains when everything else is stripped away. The ninth lesson is about transforming solitude into strength rather than allowing it to become despair. Betrayal often leaves a man isolated. The person who betrayed you may have been central to your social circle, your routine, your sense of connection. Suddenly you find yourself alone. This aloneness can feel like punishment, like exile. But Seneca taught that solitude is a gift if used correctly. It is in solitude that you truly get to know yourself, that you rebuild without the noise and influence of others, that you establish your foundation on something unshakable. The betrayed man has the opportunity to use this time to reconnect with who he is independent of any relationship. What are your values? What do you stand for? What kind of life do you want to build? These questions are often drowned out when we are surrounded by others, especially when we are trying to maintain relationships that require us to compromise ourselves. Solitude forces clarity. It strips away distraction and leaves you face to face with yourself. The Stoic embraces this. He sees it not as loneliness, but as sacred time. Time to heal, time to think, time to rebuild. And when he emerges from that solitude, he is no longer the same man. He is forged, tempered, and ready to engage with the world on his own terms. The 10th teaching is the most personal. Keep your integrity intact, regardless of others' dishonor. One of the most insidious effects of betrayal is the temptation it creates to abandon your own principles. If they lied, why should you tell the truth? If they were disloyal, why should you remain loyal to your values? If they played dirty, why should you play fair? But Marcus Aurelius understood that your virtue is not conditional on the virtue of others. You do not act with integrity because others deserve it. You act with integrity because that is who you are. Your character is not a tactic. It is not a strategy you deploy only when it is reciprocated. It is the foundation of your identity. When you maintain your integrity in the face of betrayal, you prove to yourself that you are not a product of your circumstances. You are not reduced to the lowest behavior you have witnessed. You remain yourself, solid, consistent, honorable. This is not about being naive or allowing others to take advantage of you. It is about refusing to let their darkness infect your light. The betrayed man who remains true to himself, who does not compromise his values even when hurt, emerges from the experience not as a victim, but as a man of unshakable character. The 11th and final lesson is the one that ties all the others together. The greatest victory is self-mastery. The Stoics believed that external victories, wealth, status, even revenge, are hollow compared to the victory of mastering oneself. Betrayal tests your ability to master your emotions, your reactions, your thoughts, and your choices. When you can stand in the fire of betrayal and remain calm, when you can feel the pain without being destroyed by it, when you can let go of what was lost without clinging desperately to the past, you have achieved something far greater than any form of revenge or justice. You have achieved dominion over yourself. This is the ultimate strength. The world can take many things from you. People can lie, cheat, betray. Circumstances can shift. But no one can take your ability to govern yourself unless you surrender it. The man who masters himself in the crucible of betrayal becomes untouchable. Not because he is unfeeling, but because he has learned to feel deeply without being controlled by those feelings. Not because he is invulnerable, but because he has learned to heal and rebuild no matter how many times he is wounded. This is the Stoic ideal. Not a man who never falls, but a man who rises every time he does. Betrayal is one of the most painful experiences you will ever face, but it does not have to be the end of your story. The Stoics taught that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Suffering comes from resistance, from wishing things were different, from losing yourself in bitterness and anger. Pain, on the other hand, is simply the signal that something needs to change. When you meet betrayal with Stoic wisdom, when you apply these ancient principles to your modern struggle, something remarkable happens. The wound begins to heal. The chaos begins to settle, and you begin to see clearly. You realize that the betrayal was not the end, but a beginning. A beginning of a new chapter where you walk with more wisdom, more discernment, The man who emerges from betrayal guided by Stoicism is not the same man who entered it. He is stronger. He is wiser. He is unbreakable. He has been tested by fire and has not been consumed. He has learned the most important lesson of all, that his peace, his strength, and his worth are not determined by the actions of others, but by the choices he makes in response. Stand firm. Walk with dignity. Master yourself. And rise.